And we're live. Hi, everybody. Spyro couldn't make it today, but today I'm joined by Alice Snow and all Punchy, the Electric Hedgehog Pokemon. Welcome, everybody.
Hi.
Uh, so today we're talking about My Hero Academia, the manga chapters 11 through 13. So I guess before we dive into the book, maybe it'd be fun for everybody to just like say hi and talk about what we're doing this week. So I'm our host, and I've been working on my comic page this week. Alice, you want to tell us a little bit about the creative projects you've been working on?
I've been working on the novel for a lot more, and I found a lot of old creature concept art that I'm trying to update.
Very cool. And I think Punchy, you've got a AI generated image of what a electric hedgehog Pokemon might look like in the style of
Yeah,
Horikoshi.
yeah. Well, that one wasn't. That was specifically just the style of My Hero Academia. But I'm trying to focus in like in the background here. I'm trying to get some AI Knuckles the Echidnas. The trouble is a lot of this is either winding up like just Sonichu or it's like a human character. So I think it's because My Hero Academia has so many hero characters that the urge to create a hero character is just overwhelming.
Yeah.
Um,
It,
the
it likes
AI prompt.
Gaijenka. It wants to humanize all the animal characters. Well, but that's weird
Yeah.
because Horikoshi actually has animal characters running around in the universe. So
Okay. Well, actually, this latest one, the one that just popped up while you were talking, that does have an animal character, but he's like a little teddy bear in the background. Um, of a regular character. So, in conclusion, AI is terrible because it takes way too long to figure out
please
how
don't
to get the
cancel.
prompts to work.
Please don't cancel us on the Twitter.com. All right. So let me give us the catch up. So previously on My Hero Academia, Deku barely manages to squeak out a win against Deku, his bully. We talked a little
No,
bit about
uh, uh, Bakugo.
Bakugo. Sorry, what did I say?
You said Deku.
You're right. You're right. Deku is fighting Deku. No, he isn't. Yeah, Deku and Bakugo. All right. So, we talked a little bit about the psychological drama, and we left off with Deku collapsing as he and Ochako, the hero team, barely wins at the school mock battle, essentially. So, chapter 11 opens right where we left off. Bakugo is sort of internally in internal turmoil for losing to Deku, who he always thought was a loser. And Midoriya once again is sent to the nurse's office, and everybody analyzes the battle and discusses the strategy. And one kind of cool thing about this scene is they talk about things we saw in the previous chapter, but now they kind of like bring it into the foreground and sort of discuss the strategy of it. I don't know. I guess I'm such a stereotypical guy. I always love it when people talk about the strategic side of action scenes. Alice, do you have any thoughts on like how the fight played out and like the whole grading session where they talked about who did well and what they did wrong?
Mm-hmm. It's like when you take an art class, everyone critiques your work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was exactly the thing I was thinking too. Like just like art class critiques.
You thought you did such a great job, and your soul gets ripped out. Well, right here, Uraraka. So this was kind of cool. So like as a gag, they had Uraraka laughing at Ida, and then she blew her cover, right? So in the previous chapter, it was just played as a gag, but here it's sort of made a point that that's you screwed up, that you gave away your position, and she's disappointed in herself for that. So I think it's just kind of neat that things that were played for laughs in the previous chapter, now that we're seeing them being taken seriously, is adding maybe a little bit of weight to this. Like you actually have to pay attention to what you're doing in the middle of the fight, or because your goofy screw ups could cost lives. And we get a hint that Momo is really bright because she observes everything, and even All Might is kind of stunned that she said everything he wanted to say, basically. So the secondary characters are getting a little build up, and then we get to see sort of the additional characters have all of their fights following Deku and Ochako's big fight. So Punchy, I'm curious, do any of the secondary characters stand out to you at all? Is there anyone who...
Well, yeah, I mean, most of them are starting to stand out, and they're starting to get fleshed out. I did rather like you've got the guy with the with the body parts that duplicate at the tips of his tentacles. I'm not going to discuss that one. That guy is off limits.
Yeah. If you take a look at the Rule 34 stuff that pops up randomly in your search bar when you try to look for reference sheets for him,
I don't want to imagine it.
Yeah, that's well, that kind of goes without saying. The thing that I was rather impressed with was the fact that the joke character from the last episode wound up being judged the best out of all the team, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I think the reasoning was sound too. But it is kind of interesting because you really don't expect him to be declared the star of the show, because all he basically did, like from like a cool comic perspective, is he stood around and he did like a silly villain monologue.
Well, and he prepared for Ochaku by cleaning the room and not giving her any objects to use, right?
Yeah,
so
he was strategic, and he was thinking tactically, and he had his head about him, and yeah, you know.
If you guys hear rummaging over here, it's probably because I'm actually coloring something in.
Oh, cool.
So if you hear like pencils swerving around, that's me. Sorry.
You gotta live stream that stuff. That's great content. Yeah.
Yeah, do some. I mean, she does do like speed paints and things. I don't know if she's ever done a live stream art, but
I can't because I haven't been able to find a good camera
to get the,
and I'm not using my phone because it has too much information.
Yeah. I mean, you can use screen capture software to do that too, but I'll help you with that later. About Ida, right?
Ida,
yeah.
Ida. He, I mean, I've mentioned him before. You know, he's kind of that cool senpai, very tall, handsome, mature, right? You know, he's got the glasses.
You should see Horikoshi's drawing after drawing him as a female. He actually did a gender, what they would look like if they were the opposite gender.
Yeah, I'd imagine that it would be quite similar to what's her face, the other top girl, the one on the bottom.
Actually, he looks exactly the same.
Yeah,
the face is the same. All he has is like two braided.
Well, the other one apparently was Invisible Girl. I don't remember the Invisible Girl's name.
Yeah,
but originally,
she takes her clothes off.
Yeah, well, she was originally going to be a guy too, and he just thought, nah, it'd be more fun if she was a girl.
Yeah, more gags. Hagakure, I believe is her name.
Nice. There it is, yeah. And I'm sure all of these are a pun on something. I'm going to have to look up what all these pun names mean later. But like Bakugo's name basically is the sound effect for an explosion. Okay, one cool thing that stood out to me is we're basically establishing that not all of the students are at the same level of power. Todoroki's power is seemingly overwhelming, and he can defeat people. Basically, they can't touch him right now, right?
Wait, what was? Could you go back to the Invisible Girl joke?
Yeah,
it was Hagakure, right?
Hagakure, yeah.
Is that her name?
I don't know if that's her surname.
Well, what's the? Because Hagakure, it means like hidden or something, hidden by leaves.
Toru Hagakure.
Yeah.
Toru Hagakure, I think is how it's said.
I mean, because the thing, like, most people know that from is from a book, the Hagakure book, but it's probably just a reference to being hidden or something. I'm guessing that's why he's saying, "Oh, it makes sense for an invisible person."
Yeah.
But maybe she's a samurai too. I've got no idea.
You know, she can't turn off her powers, so she's practically, so if you really can't see her, that means she's walking around naked.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, because she walks around with just like gloves and boots most of the time, right? Like she's naked other than that, or
Mhm.
She
There's
has a
actually
school.
going
She
to
has a
be a
school. Yeah.
gag with that, with one of their teachers,
mm,
that he can't see her, but she's like puts some cuffs on him, and he accidentally elbows her boob.
oh,
It wouldn't be a Shonen Jump without a little fan service, right? So
yeah. Well, this is that is kind of funny because you know, fan service has been falling out of favor in a lot of animes,
yeah,
unfortunately. But you know,
We can
this
blame the
is
Karens. We can blame the
yeah,
Karens.
like the Karens have really done a number on anime, and it's really unfortunate. You know, I could get into that for a while, but um,
I
ba-
remember. I remember when Mineta, the little pervert. You haven't seen much of him, but there's like a little pervert
oh,
character, and that started a whole Twitter kerfuffle because it's like,
oh,
oh, if you have a pervert character, that means you like perverts. You know?
yeah. Well, I mean,
Actually,
usually they're joke characters.
he's
So,
one out of, I believe, 3.
mm. All right. Well,
The only reason why people focus on him, I think, is because he has a very unique look.
hmm.
Mineta, right? Mineta,
He's
right?
from
The little
this one,
weirdo.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the little guy with balls on his head. Oh, there he is, right there. Actually,
He's
yeah,
got balls on his head.
that's the
Oh,
pervert. Not those
yeah.
kind. Yeah.
Okay, that different. That's not the kind of
The,
balls.
the
Okay.
diaper guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess you know, normally when comics are trying to cover up the fan service, right? You know, you'll get like a fat character, or you'll get a character in a hijab, or something like that. Um, so I guess having a naked invisible girl that's a compromise that I can work with. That's funny and it's interesting, and I'm like, okay, you know what? You're censoring the fan service, but I can still deal with it. I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
So,
Actually,
good on
you do get to see her in later parts of the manga,
Ooh,
but it's
okay.
only like a silhouette or some sort of like she's standing next to something that renders her invisibility somewhat
Yeah,
mute.
well, what about like ice or frost or something? Because I was under the impression that was what was going to happen to her, like
It did.
the fire and ice guy. Okay, yeah, because
Yeah,
I
so-
didn't.
He froze the entire building, and because she's walking around with no shoes or anything,
There it is. Yeah.
that means that her feet get stuck to the ground, and that if she tries to move, she'll basically peel the meat off no, skin and meat that is stuck
Yeah.
to the
Well,
ground.
I was thinking specifically like, you know, cover her in frost or something, like blow some snow at her so that you can see the whole body, right?
She's susceptible to like being covered in paint or covered in mud or something.
Yeah, because that's the traditional way to beat an invisible villain,
And-
right? You know, you
and
throw
she's
a
not-
sack of flour on him, and
And she's not naked all the time. It's just that's her technique to become totally invisible, basically. So frequently we will see her in like regular outfits and
Okay.
and stuff. So
Yeah, but she it's probably going to show. It shows up later in the manga, but she has the ability to warp light because of her invisibility.
No, so
Basically, she's like a giant magnifying glass.
oh, that's cool.
Ah,
So she can do like lensing effects or something, like
Mhm.
Oh, and
Basically, she's a living out. She can actually reflect different portions of the light in different ways, which is actually pretty interesting, because when you think of a person who has invisibility, you really don't think of any offensive capabilities.
Yeah.
But Horikoshi was able to give even side gag characters the abilities to fight back.
It ties into
and
what
in
All
ways
Might,
you didn't
yeah.
think.
It ties into what All Might told Deku, where people will have powers, but that doesn't necessarily mean they know how their power works. So, like you could have water power, but you think it's a water power, but what it really is the ability to manipulate water vapor, right? So that kind of creative thinking lets the characters, you can kind of like pull out a new idea where their power doesn't actually work this way; it works this way, and now they've got a new ability. Yeah,
doing new thing. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I've actually had some like OC characters kind of like that, but I don't want to get too autistic. What I did want to ask is, tail guy. This is the guy that only has a tail, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Does he wind up? Because one of the things I was saying before we went live, the complaint that I had, because I wound up reading the manga this time instead of the anime, and the complaint that I had was that the fight sequences were a little rushed and confused. Like you don't really know exactly what's going on. You get the broad idea, but it's like what is Tail Guy doing? Like what is Invisible Girl doing? How do they get through this fight? So specifically with Tail Guy, does he actually wind up doing anything with his tail, or is he just like frozen solid and that's the end of the fight?
He's
Like in the anime.
frozen. He's frozen solid in this fight.
Okay.
Though it's later on revealed that his tail is strong enough to create I forgot what it's called, but he's able to break concrete, or if he's stuck in something,
like
his
earthquakes
tail,
or something.
Yeah, something similar to that.
Yeah, using so like Marm was saying, using the powers for something new, figuring out new ways to do it. Then
I definitely think that whole sequence was kind of written to kind of like let's be snappy, let's not spend 30 minutes on every one of these.
Yeah,
so it's more like a montage sequence. Like, hey, here's a quick view of how all these fights went.
Yeah, the important characters got their time in the sun, and now you just you just rush by the peons.
I love Horikoshi's authorial comments on his characters. He's got a sturdy tail. That's it. The fact he managed to pass the entrance exam with that alone is proof of his strength. I think he's a real hard worker, and he has to get his clothes custom made because nobody has clothes for people with giant tails.
Which is surprising considering the world that they live in.
Yeah, don't they suggest that there's like a lot of weird custom industries because of?
Yeah,
I think that
it's become standard practice at clothing stores since the proliferation of quirks. Yeah, so everything's completely individuated now. You actually have to pay attention to people as an individual now in this world. They're not just a cog in the machine. How about that?
Yeah.
I guess my own thoughts on Tail Guy. So I've only gotten to season 3, so I haven't seen his other abilities be brought to the fore yet. I think Horikoshi's general strength is he does eventually get around to developing some of these characters. So I haven't seen much of Tail Guy's development yet, but I kind of am confident that Horikoshi will do that because he does do that with a lot of with some of the other characters who are a bit more prominent. It's sort of like he's slow building the minor characters while he concentrates on the major characters. So speaking of a major character, one thing I really appreciated and I wanted to call attention to was like how good a teacher, how All Might's like trying to be a good teacher but kind of struggling with it. Like he cares about Deku. Deku's the main kid. He's kind of like chosen as his protege, but he actually is like consciously thinking about Bakugo's problem and what he needs to talk to Bakugo about to help Bakugo, get over himself, basically.
His pride.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem to work. He's definitely the driven rival character. He's not going to take it lying down. Well, I was going to ask if Tail Guy has anything to do with Tanukis. Are there any references to Nukis or anything?
I'd have to like translate his name. Maybe I can try to do that in the background a little bit.
Okay.
Alice, do you know if Tail Guy's name has any special significance,
or like his character? Like, is there any kind of significance in his character to Tanukis specifically?
Not that I know of, but don't Tanukis carry their own nuts on their back?
Yeah, well, that's why I was thinking about it, because in Japan they've got these magical tanuki creatures in their mythology, and they're very much one of these, like, use your quirk in new and interesting ways that might not be immediately apparent. Do you know much about them, Marmaduke fan? Or
I've seen Tanuki show up in a few like Japanese fairy tales, and I've seen like how weird the real life versions of them look. I don't know too much apart from like seeing them in a few fairy tales. I don't know too much about like, and I know they're kind of like culturally significant in their lore, but I don't know too much about what they could mean symbolically.
Yeah, well, I mean, specifically with like their use of tails, because they're known for doing all kinds of things with tails.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's Mario. Mario's raccoon power up is actually a Tanuki power up.
Not the tails. They're actually the balls. Sorry,
okay.
But they've. Let me see. Is there any way? I don't think I can do it with the edit audio or anything. If you look up like old paintings of Tanuki balls, they do things like they make ships out of them, and they make like fishing nets out of their own balls.
Nice.
Umbrellas and things. So just whatever the situation calls for, they're able to take their massively oversized testicles and and use them to solve the problems that arise. So that's why I was kind of wondering if this is one of those.
It's almost like Japan has a cultural reason for why they like fan service so much.
Yeah. Yeah. This is kind of like a safe for work version. Like maybe he uses his tail in all kinds of crazy ways to get out of stuff. But
all right, I'm gonna press forward in the plot a little bit. So All Might visits Deku in the hospital, and Recovery Girl kind of roasts him over the coals for allowing that fight to go on. So for All Might,
actually, it's not a hospital; it's actually the nurse's office. It just looks like a hospital because, well, we're dealing with kids with superpowers.
Yeah,
I have a feeling that she's seen worse injuries.
It's kind of interesting because we get we get a limitation to her power. She can heal you, but it saps stamina, right? So if you just Deku can't just keep breaking his arm and breaking his body over and over again, or it's going to sap away his strength and kill him anyway. So he has a fix, but the fix isn't a permanent fix to the problem. All Might is struggling with, on the one hand, I want to let Deku fight his bully and overcome his problems. But on the other hand, if I'm only thinking about Deku and what Deku needs, then I could, not intervene and let the kids blow each other up, right? So he's in a classic, do I have to like be a helicopter parent, or do I let the birds fly free outside of the nest problem? And he talks a bit about his dilemma with the one for all power. So most of the faculty know that All Might's on his last legs and has this weaker form, but only like 4 people in the world know about the nature of one for all. And the secret of one for all is important because All Might believes this power is necessary to protect the world. But Recovery Girl is kind of cynical about that. Like, okay, Mr. Symbol of Peace. So there's almost like this question of, is All Might right? Like, should there be one person who carries the weight of the world on their shoulders for everybody, or is he taxing himself too much? Do you guys have any thought on that? We're starting to get a little insight into how hard All Might is on himself, and he's basically like tapped the shoulder of this young kid to accept that burden, right? Like, does Deku even understand what this burden is yet?
Mm-hmm.
Punchy,
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I guess she's still drawing. Yeah. I mean, I guess All Might. He seems like he's very high strung. Um,
High strung is
may
putting it
be.
lightly.
Yeah, that may be part of what's contributing to his sort of haggard health downfall. As far as him being the only thing between safety and chaos, I still don't know enough about the superhero world to know if he's like serious, or maybe he just perceives it that way and he's actually incorrect. So I'm just waiting to see how that'll
I think there was
really.
I think there was an establishing scene where they said All Might's appearance coincided with a drop in the crime rate. So
Yeah.
I think he's seeing some real world effects of his work that make him think this way.
Mhm.
Yeah. But
the thing is, he's not thinking ahead though.
Yeah.
Because once he's gone, that just means what?
Yeah. So does the world just need another All Might, or do they need to think differently about, like does it say something about the world if the entire world is resting on the shoulders of one man? It's really interesting Atlas problem. Like a hero should be self-sacrificing for the sake of the world, but is there a way of taking maybe too much on your own shoulders?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I mean, I'll just assume for the sake of assuming that All Might is correct and that he's because even the villains, because this is the episode where the villains start showing up, right? Or
at the very end, we get
in their evil lair where they're saying that they specifically have to take out All Might, because once All Might's done for, then they can take over the world. So. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe it is the case that All Might is the only guy standing between victory and chaos.
I think it's more that he's doing too much to the point of where he's outshining everyone else.
Yeah. Okay.
And making it extremely difficult for them to actually make their own way.
So you think he's kind of getting in his own way then?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's possible. One of the things that I was thinking was because, again, his superpower is specifically geared towards being given to other people. I'm kind of wondering why he hasn't done this Deku thing already, or why he hasn't like fed his hair to other characters as well. Maybe it's too taxing. Because it can only be
passed on to one.
Oh, okay. Like one person at a time, or
yeah.
Okay. How long does it take for that one person to be able to pass on? Because All Might can still use his powers, though, right? Like when he passes on his powers, that doesn't mean he loses his powers. It just means someone new gains his powers, or am
he's losing his powers, and he will soon have to back down.
It's like a torch. It's like a torch going out. He has the dregs. He's running on the fumes of the power, but he's given the tank. He's given the energy tank to Deku while he's driving around with his tank on empty, basically.
Okay. Well, that's yeah. I guess my plan wouldn't work then, because I was going to say, just keep giving hair to people as rapidly as possible.
Democratize the power.
Yeah. Let everyone eat hair and become super Americans. Which actually, oh god, because there was something else about America in here too that I was gonna say.
Was it the American attack names like Detroit Smash, Texas?
Oh yeah, Smash? There's like Missouri Smash or something, which is just the worst name for an attack ever. No, oh god, what was it? It was some point that I was gonna make about people losing the war but still winning.
Mm-hmm.
The gallant losers. You become like the South, or like people who are nostalgic for Japan, maybe being nostalgic for the World War II cause, even though they lost.
Yeah, because one of the things, like, America's
which led the Second World War concept led to us getting
what was it?
Godzilla.
Yeah.
I think it might have actually been with Ida and everything that I was thinking about that, because you know, Ida wound up winning in the end eventually, even though his team didn't do anything spectacular. And that's kind of like America. Like, we go in and we accomplish our objectives, right? You know, you blow the hell out of everything, but in the long run, the winners wind up being, you know, the third world country that you blew up, just because, you know, they're able to keep their heads and stick to the basic strategies and tactics. Even though they lose, they still wind up winning. And I think that idea has come up several times in these issues, but I can't find it in my notes right now.
I have a thought, though, that connects to that. So, like, earlier we were talking about, like, All Might's view of responsibility, right? And I think that Deku has an effect on Ida. Ida is, you know, super serious and uptight. He sees Deku save someone, and that kind of gets Ida to change his thinking a little bit. Like, he judged Deku too quickly. So whereas All Might just piles responsibility on top of himself, Deku sort of accidentally inspires people to become the best hero they can be, and he's like instantly, like, he just walks in the class. He realized that people think he's cool.
Yeah.
Deku thinks of himself as a nerd still, but he's inspiring people more than he realizes he is, because they're sort of sitting on the sidelines and watching. And I think even someone has the line, "We saw how super crazy you were in that fight, so we all had to give it our all," right? So Deku's more of a natural leader than All Might, because he makes his teammates want to do better.
Well, doesn't All Might do that too, though? I mean, everyone seems to look up to All Might. Is it just that he's, like, too remote, and people, like, look up to him as a superhero, but they don't think, like, oh yeah, I can be that superhero, maybe?
I feel like there was even a little bit of that in the early chapters. Like, in the early chapters, Deku tried to talk to All Might, and All Might went into, like, "Oh, here, I'll sign your book" mode, right? Like, he has a way of interacting with his fans where he's performing the big, strong hero guy, and almost nobody knows the real weak, vulnerable All Might, right? So he does inspire people, but it's his persona that inspires people. I don't know. Maybe in future volumes that, you know, beyond where I've read, we'll get to see more of that. But I think the All Might that I've seen so far is fragile. He has that fragile side to him, right? And what's weird is Deku has a different kind of fragility. All Might's is a fragility that he hides and doesn't want people to see, and Deku's fragility is sort of on the surface, right? So it's sort of like he's trying to dig the hero out of the fragile surface person that he is. Okay, speaking of fragility, I really like we see Bakugo's weakness. I think this chapter is called Bakugo's starting line. So Bakugo lost. For him, losing is a big deal because he's thought of himself as a winner, and he's acting under the assumption that Deku lied to him about not having a quirk. So Deku kind of, like, stupidly, you know, he's got to go talk to the one true man for him and confess his soul to the yaoi material, okay. Right? So Deku reveals that he was gifted his quirk, and Bakugo doesn't really believe him, and it gets on his nerves, and Bakugo basically has a breakdown, right? There's even, like, a scene where All Might tries to come in and gas him up and to build him up, and Bakugo just tells All Might to go sit on a tank.
Pound sand.
Yeah, it kind of backfires. I did like the "I'll be a hero who surpasses even you" line, though. That's got some balls. You know.
Yeah, Bakugo has the drive of the traditional Shonen Jump protagonist.
Yeah.
I will be the best thing in the world at fill in the blank.
Yeah, I mean he's the traditional rival character too, because he's, he strives to be better. There's always like a hero who strives to be better and a rival who strives to be better than the hero, and they play off each other in this quasi frenemy sort of
Yeah.
gay manner, and um, everybody's struggling to become better. You see it in like Japanese wrestling storylines too, and just any kind of storyline where two dudes are expected to come into play. It's a constant drive to see who is going to surpass the other one.
Well, Ochako had that line. I see. It's a fated rivalry between men.
Yeah.
Because she just says the most obvious thing, whatever pops into her head.
She explains the trope.
And the villain. I like that we get a hint of the villains, because like I have the same problem where if it's just high school hijinks, is it just a superhero high school hijinks story? So we do get a hint of dastardly villains in the background plotting some dastardly schemes. So.
Yeah, they really do look dastardly too. Yeah. Like that was kind of the moment that I perked up, and I'm like, oh hey, yeah, like there'll be some actual stakes and some actual tension. They're weird and they're kind of creepy. Like, why does the guy have hands all over himself? What's up with like the smokestack guy with the business suit? So I like the designs of these characters, and you can tell right away that they're evil and up to no good. You only get one page of them, but it's very effective.
He's almost bringing in like older like seinen horror manga sensibilities, but he's toning it down just enough for the 13-year-old audience. Yeah. And a few more character notes on Todoroki. These are so interesting to me because it's like a glimpse into the process. I think he says about him, I feel like he's the first or second class member I came up with after Izuku, Katsuki, and Ochako, right? So the earlier you come up with them, maybe like the more prominent role they have to play in the story. Basically, all he says about him is there's a lot about this guy I can't say right now. So I kind of know what he's talking about, but and then oops, he had a continuity error problem. So he said there are 18 kids in the class, and then there are 20 kids. That's because the 18 refers to applicants, and then the 2 extra kids are admitted purely on recommendation. Whoops, my bad. Sorry if that was confusing. So I like that he has like moments where his fans are like paying attention and calling out stuff. He's got to like explain the continuity to everybody.
Yeah, was that actually the continuity, or did he make an error and then just made something up to cover?
I read it carefully, and I'm pretty convinced that he did intend that to be the case from the start. Okay. Because the kids who get in on recommendations, I think, are Todoroki and
Yayorozu.
So Yayorozu. Like the 2 smartest and most talented kids were the ones who got in on recommendations. So it's sort of like it's a status symbol if you get in on recommendations. That means you're like really legit.
Okay, yeah, because I noticed that too, and I thought it was kind of neat that he was addressing some really specific, really autistic, the kind of wizard did it kind of question, but he'd actually thought it through. So if that was intentional the whole time, that's pretty cool. Good for him.
All right, so do your best, Ida. We get Ida's little character moment and some high school hijinks, and we get the evil mainstream media subplot.
Yeah, this is.
That mainstream media does always want to find the truth and get the views.
That's what they say. Well, yeah, it's. I mean, the media stuff. I was gonna make jokes about them right at the beginning, but it gets more serious as time goes on. So maybe focus on the class president election. I think that's.
So I like that Aoyama. I think it's his name, right? Eraserhead does. He finds his whole process to be kind of a silly waste of time. And I liked how when he chewed out Bakugo and Deku, it's sort of like he's grown. It's not. we're getting a little bit more insight into him. Our first impression was, oh, he's an evil, crazy, scary looking, homeless dude. But he actually does
emperor.
Yeah, but he actually does care about like giving these students some guidance. Like Bakugo needs to grow up. Deku's got to work out this stupid problem, but he tells Deku, you have some potential if you work this out. So he's not just flatly an evil, crazy psycho teacher. He actually cares about his job of, mentoring these kids. Everybody wants to be class president because it's like it's a big deal because that shows you can be a team leader. Ida, puts on his super serial face and proposes a vote, and Ida gets 0 votes. Deku gets 3 votes, and Yaoyorozu gets 2 votes.
Which was the guy that ran on the Absolute Territory platform? How many votes did he get? I don't even know what his name is.
Wait, is that like some Japanese politics lore I'm unfamiliar with?
No, yeah, from 6. The guy that specifically wants 30 centimeters of thigh on all the female students. I thought that was pretty basic.
That was Mineta, yeah, and that was left out of the anime. I think. Okay. So let me find it.
Yeah, there it's like on the top or something. Yep. Everyone's giving their positions.
There's the pervert. Well,
okay, yeah, it's the balls on head guy. I thought it was the guy below him that was saying that, but now that I'm looking carefully, yeah, it is. It's the balls on.
I just remembered we were talking about like Rule 34 with like body parts guy. Mm-hmm. Mineta, the first thing Mineta said was he made a sexy joke about that. Like is our head's in the gutter and so is Mineta's. Yeah. He's us. He's just a mirror, everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking like the Absolute Territory meme, but that's a big. That's a lot of thigh for Absolute Territory.
Now I got it. Yeah. I know. I know that meme. Yeah. What's the proper proportion of sock to leg? The proper
proportion of sock to leg. That's actually really huge. I'm not sure what grade Absolute Territory it would be, but it's probably very low. He's way too much of a pervert. He needs to have a bit of class and restraint.
Like Master Roshi is my favorite example from Dragon Ball because he's continually Master Roshi's always punished for being a pervert. I don't know. Maybe if Mineta needs a tsundere like older sister type to smack him in the face every time he says something perverted, then you know that it's wrong, right? All right. So relating to the class election, it's kind of interesting that like Deku can't believe he won. Ochako clearly voted for Deku because she likes the nice nerdy boy with curly hair. I actually wasn't able to figure out who the votes were. Like I think in the chapter it's mentioned that Ochako's one of the votes, Ida's one of the votes because Deku also earned Ida's respect. So I'm not sure if Deku voted for himself or if he also did like the noble I won't vote for myself.
Didn't he say at one point that he didn't vote for himself? Or I don't know. It could be.
I have a dim memory of that. Yeah, I didn't catch that on my second watch throws because I was trying to look for that. Alice, do you know if there's any? Do you know if there's any like deep lore? If fans have worked out, is there some nerd on the internet who's figured out who voted for who in the class election?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
Or at least I haven't found them.
Okay.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, I guess ultimately it doesn't really matter because they decide on who's going to be the class president anyways. But
right. It kind of shows that Deku's more. He's made a better first impression than he thinks he has. We get a little. Ida gets a chance to talk about how he comes from a rich family and his older brother's a big hero, and Deku and Ochako, they're so interested in the gossip. So these three are it's kind of like you go to high school and the first couple people you hang out with, those are going to be your best friends for all of high school. So we're finally seeing the softer side of Ida, and the media sneaks onto campus grounds and starts a panic. Let's see if I can find that great panel. Should we beat up the mainstream media?
Can we blow them away already?
Lay off it, Mike. They'll write what they want either way. Let's wait for the cops. Eraserhead. I think Eraserhead listens to conspiracy theory podcasts at home.
Yeah. Well, I get the sense that they all do, because none of them really seem to like the media, and it seems like I mean, even the building itself thought patrols the media right in the beginning, right? Like it's got like automatic doors that slam shut on reporters, and all kinds of alarms set up. So they
Basically,
definitely,
if you don't have a school ID, you can't get in.
yeah, they do not like these outsiders meddling with them.
This is kind of a nice touch. In the middle of the panic, Ida's glasses get knocked off, right? So he's kind of like a really uptight, straightforward sort of guy. And in a tense situation, you know, when the glasses go akimbo, you know that things are in, you know, emergency mode. So Ida's story is basically, there's this tense situation. So he gets the bright idea to kind of like slam into the wall to grab everyone's attention. And
is that what he did? Because I couldn't tell what the hell was going on in this sequence either.
All right, so he high fives Ochako to get floated in the air, and then he boosts. But because he's not connected to anything, that means he's spiraling in the air. Like if you had rockets on your legs and you were and they fired off, you go spiraling. He's
doing like uncontrolled somersaults and things.
And this is like a Japanese thing. Apparently, the guy on the exit sign has that pose. So he stands.
Oh, right. Okay.
So he looks like an exit sign guy, and then he shouts, "Everybody fine. It's just the mainstream media. There's no need to panic." So this is Ida's moment to, you know, restore calm and order to a tense situation, which is why Deku says, "I think we should have Ida be our class representative." And I think even Momo has the line, "Man, is my job really safe if Deku can just decide who the class president's going to be and everybody goes for it?"
Oh, he's the power behind the throne at this point. He's the shadow government, the deep state.
He's Caesar declining the crown. Yeah, he's declining the wreath, but really he's the king of the high school class. So.
Yeah, and I mean, Ida, like, as soon as they said they were going to have an election, I was like, he's the senpai guy, so he's got to be the class president. But yeah, so everything works itself out in the end.
And I like that we build up the idea that someone did this, right? The ordinary reporters couldn't have done this. Did villains do this? Have villains infiltrated our school, or are they just trying to intimidate us a little bit? So I like that, you know, we're reminding the audience, don't worry, guys, there are villains coming. Your big villain fight is coming up really soon. Just hang on with us for a little bit longer.
Keep buying books.
I don't know too much about Hamster Dumbledore principal guy, Alice. Do you have any insight on the principal?
Principal Nezu?
Yeah.
Other than that, he is a rare exception, and that he is very, very smart, and he was used for, I believe, quark experiments.
Oh, is it like a lab rat or something? Like he's a living lab rat?
Yep.
Oh, geez. That's not good.
It comes in funny later.
Yeah.
It's not horrifying if you play it as a joke.
Yeah, so I mean, were they using him as like a human lab rat when he was the principal, or did he just like?
No, I think he's literally a lab rat with a quirk, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's like a Nim. He's like what's her name, Brinsby or something from
Ms. Brisby and the Rats of Nim. Yeah,
the Rats of Nim. Okay, well that's interesting. Yeah, I'll have to wait and check out his Nim backstory, because I did enjoy the Nim books back in the day.
Those were good. Yeah, and it's probably I think that's Bluth's best movie. Like, I think sometimes Bluth, you know, the plots on his movies aren't that good, but I think that The Secret of Nim, like he contained himself basically. The plot of the book made for a better movie than some of his other stuff. Okay.
Yeah, just
chapter.
for people who haven't read Nim, who are watching this.
If you haven't heard of it, then you're under a rock somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to explain it, Alice? Do you?
No, I just watched the movies.
Okay, yeah, it's basically it's a story, it's a series of books and movies and things about lab rats at the National Institute of Mental Health who all become like super intelligent human lab rats and the adventures and hijinks they get into. So
Great series. You know,
yeah.
okay, I've noticed, I wonder if it is a Nim reference, because there's this weird thing where almost every manga will reference Lupin the Third, or the Gentleman Thief Lupin at some point, and I think it's like
Okay.
it's a French romantic novel that's just like popular to learn French language in Japan. So now it's like a big cultural icon there.
Oh, really?
It is
Okay,
weird to me that they have different little cultural touchstones at some point.
Yeah, I haven't actually ever watched Lupin the Third. I mean, I'm aware of it, but you know, I usually watch like old animes like that one, but that one's something that I haven't actually checked out. So it is actually based on a French novel then?
Yes, well, he's supposed to be like a descendant of the gentleman thief Lupin, and so like Tuxedo Mask is a Lupin reference. Conan, Detective Conan is full of Lupin references. Yeah.
Okay.
Anytime a romantic thief in a mask is dancing around, stealing and laughing at the cops and darting away.
That's all based on a French book.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
All right. Here is the Missouri. Here's the Missouri Smash.
Yeah. No, I disavow Missouri. Don't. Missouri Smash, like when I hear Missouri Smash, I just think of like Shoji Tabuki or something. You know, hitting someone in a Branson, Missouri set or something. It's just no.
Well, I think Texas Smash is a cooler name than Detroit Smash. Like I just cringe a little inside. Yeah. Oh no, dying industrial city Smash. Oh no.
Yeah, Detroit Smash doesn't. It just sounds like depressing.
It just leaves you like Detroit when he's done with you.
You're in a complete state of ruin. That's like Texas Smash sounds like it's a really big, really bombastic, really fun attack, right? You know, it's the Texas Smash. Like tornadoes and big desert winds just banging into you, and then Detroit Smash, it's like you hit the guy and he's just like homeless and addicted to crack and living in a burnt down factory that hasn't been operating since the 1960s.
Yeah. All right, I want to call attention to some comic nerd stuff. So All Might talks a bit about how he's been weakening since he passed on the power, and overdoing it also dropped the amount of time he can spend in his power form. So exertion weakens him, as well as actually passing on the quirk. So the kind of like that cool nerdy thing is there's always some sort of visual element to say, hey, we're doing a flashback. So there's this cool little gradient from black to white as All Might remembers his conversation with Deku. So Deku confesses that he revealed to Bakugo that I inherited this quirk. And again, we're kind of like reinforcing this point where All Might is trying to balance the two sides of being a teacher. So he's got to tell off Deku a little bit for revealing the secret, but luckily Bakugo seemed to think you were pulling his leg. I can forgive you this time, but please don't tell another soul. I've got to be a tough dad to this kid, but I can't be too harsh on him, right? So I thought that was kind of sweet.
Yeah, get the belt. And did you ever work out that little thing on the bottom left?
Oh yeah, okay. Asking... Yeah, okay. So I think this is just like some abstract idea to say this is the end of the flashback, and now we're back to the present moment. So all it is just one little line, and then lines around the bubble. So it's almost like I haven't been able to find any standard. I've never seen this before, so I don't know if this is a standard thing or Horikoshi just trying something to say, here's a little visual break. That's to let you know the flashback is over. But he seems to really favor these kinds of things. Like the last time I noticed it was using the gutter. Like he took the gutter and he like drew a whole bunch of gutters in a panel to say that we're fading to a new scene now. So we fade to school and they're going to do rescue training, with or without their. Okay, I thought this was kind of a little weird. I wish this was thought out a little better. Like, we have these costumes, they're cool, but they could also get in the way, right? Well, can they be a little more practical for if we're gonna rescue some people?
Like make a costume that will actually work, that won't get in.
Were you gonna say something about the bus, Punchy?
Oh yeah, well that was just kind of autistic, because it didn't actually wind up panning out how I was hoping it was panning out. But the moment I saw this page, the first thing that popped to my mind was Battle Royale. I'm like, oh god, they're gonna Battle Royale the Monastery. I don't know if you guys.
I watched Battle Royale with you. Remember?
Yeah, you watched it with me. Marmaduke, are you familiar with?
I don't know that one.
Okay, well that was an old manga and an incredibly important movie, back in like the 90s and early 2000s.
Think early Hunger Games.
Yeah, it was the predecessor to things like Hunger Games and Squid Games, as well as the inspiration for the Battle Royale video game genre. So if you like Hunger Games, or play Fortnite, or PUBG or anything like that, it all basically comes from ideas in Battle Royale. But in Battle Royale, it starts off with a group of high school students or junior high school students, something like that, and they're all going on a fun day trip in the bus, and after a little while, they all wind up getting gassed and knocked unconscious. And then when they wake up, they've been dumped in the middle of an island and forced to fight to the death.
Nice.
Yeah, and they have collars.
Yeah. So this whole like herding the kids onto the bus, I thought it was going to end with them all getting gassed.
And instead we get high school hijinks. Everybody teasing Bakugo. Yeah,
that's too bad. I mean, if I was doing a remake, I'd have the villains come in at this point and have somebody with a quirk that can create poison or like hallucinogenic gas or something, like a scarecrow guy, and then he gasses them all, and then they have to fight their way off an island. I thought that would have been really cool, but unfortunately it didn't happen. So but yeah, Battle Royale I heartily recommend to anyone. And the movie actually has Gogo Yubari from Kill Bill in it as well. Chiaki Kuriyama.
That's what I like, is catching all of these new cultural reference points I've missed out on. Yeah.
Yeah, that one was really big. So yeah, you get Battle Royale, I get Lupin. But
very cool. All right, so Sue, we got a little info about the characters. Sue's kind of blunt. What's Manly Guy's name? Kirishima. Yeah, Kirishima's very big on like people being manly, tough guys, and they talk a little bit. It's like they kind of talk shop and roast each other. So it's that Band of Brothers vibe. We tease each other. We talk about what we're good at, and your quirk's so cool. No, your quirk's so cool, and everybody starts bagging on Bakugo. And I think Denki has the line that we all just know you, and we already know you have a shit personality.
Yeah.
What a vulgar conversation. So Deku can't believe it, because he's used to Bakugo being the big bully in his life. But now Bakugo isn't he's not the big fish in the little pond anymore. Now he's surrounded by a bunch of, type A, hyper competitive types, right? So, Alice, I'm kind of curious about 13. Do we get any more like backstory on like why 13's in this weird containment suit, as far as you know?
Not that I know of, but then again, 13 doesn't show up too much.
Okay, I mean, is it one of those things like Rogue or something, where like his body itself has something to do with it? Oh, okay. Well, her body herself then, because the quirk for 13 is the black holes.
Is
right?
it, Alice? Is that a translation issue? Because I thought it was weird because the voice sounded feminine, but then they used he and male pronouns in the manga translation. So I thought it. I wondered, is this like one of those weird ambiguous gender things? Do you know anything about that?
I think it was ambiguous at first until it was confirmed.
Gotcha. Sort of like Pikachu. Ash's Pikachu had no gender for the longest time until they were forced to.
Oh God, what is Pikachu's gender?
Well, they wanted to be ambiguous so that boys or girls could both like Pikachu, and then they had to make it male because they gave Pikachu's heart-shaped tails if they were girls, right? And Ash's Pikachu didn't have a heart-shaped tail, so it was sort of like we discovered after the fact how to spot the difference between a male and female Pikachu. But all right, so
yeah, I always just assumed it was a boy Pikachu, but
yeah. But of course, we were boys, right? So we were projecting ourselves on.
Maybe.
How ambiguous does it have to be for you to see yourself, or could you project yourself onto Pikachu if Pikachu was a girl Pikachu?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, and that is actually something, unfortunately, that's currently relevant because there is this big discussion in comics about, how can you project yourself onto a character and see yourself in a character and blah 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 blah. And I do think that like kids would be able to see themselves in a Pikachu, even though it's just a friggin' Pikachu, right? But as far as like crossing genders, I'm not sure. I mean, I think I would probably find it difficult to project myself, like when I was a kid, projecting myself onto characters, I would probably have found it difficult to project myself onto a female character. There were female characters that I really liked, but in cases like that, I didn't really find myself projecting myself onto the female characters, but rather, as like a separate character that goes off and does adventures with the female character, right? So
it's the difference between the difference between imagining yourself as them and seeing them as an interesting person outside of yourself. Yeah.
That's a good point. I think, like, for me, when I was a kid, remembering how I kind of play acted and fantasized and did like imaginative play outside or whatever. I think with gender would be the one barrier. Like, I could project myself onto animals and monsters and like Pikachus and things, but probably not if it was a girl.
I want to be Batman. I want to hang out with Catwoman.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So speaking of female characters, just a little cool thing. I like that Uraraka is a fangirl for 13. So it's sort of like everybody has their hero that they are a fanboy or a fangirl for. And Uraraka has a gravity-themed power, and 13 has sort of a gravity-themed power, in that it's a black hole. So there's almost like a power connection between the two of them. I just think it's nice that not everybody geeks out purely over All Might. So that was a nice little thing.
I actually found a manga scan of 13's face, and it's definitely a girl.
Nice.
I don't know how I can. I probably can't screen share it. But if you go and look at the wiki, the fan wiki,
they've got all the spoilers you could ever want.
Yeah, the My Hero Academia wiki for 13 has some things of her without the costume. Oh, okay. Yeah. What? Oh, that's weird. She's kind of she looks kind of like a tomboy Wendy's employee. So I don't know if that's if that was intentional, but if you like tomboy Wendy's employees, definitely go check her out.
Very cool. All right, so there's something 13 talks about that I wanted to point out. So she, I guess, even though it was he earlier in this translation. So 13 describes her power as black hole and kind of makes the point that, I use it to save people, but it could easily kill people. And they talk about their previous classes. I thought this was really neat. Eraserhead's class was supposed to teach them the limitations of their powers. Here's what's possible for you to do when you have no limits. All Might's class was to teach them, danger and how to like defeat another person with your power. And rescue training is supposed to teach you how to save people without hurting them with your quirk. So it's almost like this school there's a logical theory. There's like they have a pedagogy or educational purpose behind the classes, and it's supposed to build up. First you learn the basics, then you learn how to fight. Now you learn how to control your power to save people. I just thought that was a nice little world building aspect to how the classroom works. Oh, and then out of the blue, this is a nice little scene. So there's a little thing in the background. Eraserhead sort of slowly turns to see what it is, and out of it emerges this scary monstrosity.
That was cool. I like that one. That's like, if I was 14 and I was flipping through the manga, that would have gone on like my bedroom wall or something.
So metal. Yeah. I really like the villain design. So we saw that this is the main three from earlier. There's like an iguana. There's like a scary ram dude with a butcher knife and a Medusa. Mm-hmm. There's definitely a lot of love in like the mooks, right? Like they're not just all plain looking bad guys with t-shirts that say "I'm a goon" on them. And I like the tension. Like Eraserhead really sells like this is like a school shooting or this is like a terrorist attack. So Eraserhead puts himself between the students and the villains. Let's see. Oh yeah, and then they make their announcement that they're here looking for All Might, and All Might isn't here because he burned through all of his power. So basically, they're gonna. It's kind of a neat double twist.
Isn't he like physically present? He's just like hiding in a room or something.
He's in the school's off. Yeah, he's in the nurse's office, so he's present on campus, but he's not.
No, he's actually in the employees' lounge.
Okay. Is the employees' lounge at the training facility or is it back at the school? Because I was under the impression. Oh, okay. Because I was under the impression that he was there at the training facility, but he was just like hanging out in a back office or something until he recovered, and then he was going to pop out. Because if he's back at the school, that's even more of a trouble.
Yeah, he's a few hours away, not a few seconds away. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
When seconds count, All Might is minutes away.
Yeah, I thought he was right there, but yeah, I did like the idea of dead kids. Dead kids will definitely interest me. So that was a good cliffhanger ending.
It's also a nice like he's set up. I have some bad guy villains. I want them to show up, and the twist is you're initially expecting, oh, they're gonna do some more high school classroom stuff, and then bam, shit gets real. And I even like how the art style changes a little bit, like a lot more sketchy brushwork, a lot more black, a lot more action lines to sell how scary this is compared. This panel too, a lot more subtle line work on that.
Yeah, and I think the subtlety versus the urgency really helps too, because if you look at all the villains, right, like they're detailed, but it's like a soft, very subtle detail, whereas the heroes, like every panel with the heroes is all like action lines and urgent and oh god, like that one of Eraserhead up in the corner, right?
Let me see here.
You can tell that
the 2-page spread.
Yeah, and the one at the top too, right? Everything with the heroes is very urgent and very active, and you can tell that they're just like freaked out. Whereas the villains are a lot more chill and menacing, and they're just kind of stomping out, and they're like, "Yeah, we got this."
Yeah.
So it's fun how he juggles the panels like that, and gives you the different tension levels.
The action lines are saying this guy feels fear inside. This guy feels intense inside, and these guys are more like outside forces. Yeah, we're not inside.
They're confident. They know what they're doing. They're there. They're gonna fuck stuff up. And the heroes, yeah, like Deku, they're freaked out and they're fight or flight right now. They don't know what they're gonna do. Versus that kind of creepy confidence, just sitting there thinking about all the delicious dead kids they're gonna have in a minute.
Light dark dichotomy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. So, I did like the ending to this issue.
Oh, well, here we go. On 13, Horikoshi writes, meant to be someone who demonstrates that being a hero isn't just about fighting. I really like his design, but what's under the helmet? If I get the chance to show him without the suit, I will. If not, I won't. He's so blunt about his own work,
Yeah, let me see.
Are you still looking for 13's tomboy waifu art?
Yeah, I'm just looking here to see if. Oh, okay. Apparently, 13 is a reference to Apollo 13.
Yeah. Oh, I picked that up.
Okay, yeah, I didn't. I was like, oh, that's weird. Like 13. Why is it called 13? Okay, in the localization was initially described using he/him pronouns, later retconned in the anime to use he/her. Second data book is confirmed to be she/her. So yeah, that might just be a translating thing.
English thing.
Yeah, a lot of times in Japan, pronouns can be kind of difficult to pick up on. Like they use the word des a lot, which can mean him or her, or she or he. So yeah, it maybe she was intended to be a girl all along, and it's just translated.
Yeah,
there.
so it wasn't. It may not have been intended to be a mysterious, like a Samus reveal, right? Like, oh, I didn't know she was a woman the whole time. How about that? Yeah.
Doesn't she look a little like it though, Samus?
I mean, maybe. I wasn't thinking about that earlier, but now that you mentioned Samus, yeah, could be like a Samus thing.
And the other thing that got me was, I think in the dub they got one of those like ladies who do teenage boy voices to do her, so it was ambiguously a woman or a teenage boy, right?
Okay. So. Yeah, well, I mean, because these heroes are all like older though, right? Like they're not supposed to be teenage boys.
She is supposed to. Yeah, she is supposed to be a little bit of an older generation. I think she's supposed to be younger, a little bit younger than like Eraserhead and Present Mike's class. So.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. She calls Eraserhead senpai, so she must have been like a younger student compared to him at some point.
Okay, let me see. Because it's saying that she was confirmed as 28 or 29, and Eraserhead. I mean, they're probably at least in their 30s, right?
Yeah.
So
I'd be worried if you were looking that rough in your 20s.
Oh God. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's actually only 30. And 31, so he is pretty rough.
Yeah. And that's just about right. If she's 28 and he's 31, that basically means
they could have been in the same school together, and
freshman and senior, basically. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Let me just see. What about All Might? Let's see.
How old is All Might, Google?
Toshinori Yagi.
That's it. Yeah,
that is
his real name. Yeah, you just revealed All Might's secret identity live on the internet.
Yeah, is that a like?
I don't think it's a secret. I don't think it's a spoiler.
Okay, because I don't think I knew his real name before, so I don't know if that was.
He's only been referred to as All Might so far, I think, unless maybe a recovery girl calls him Toshinori at some point.
Maybe, yeah, because one of the things they established is that Recovery Girl seems to be like his biggest confidant, right?
Because of her healing aspect. Yeah, he needs a healer, so it's Recovery Girl, the principal, Midoriya, and the unnamed friend. Who I know who that's referring to, because I think we'll see him in a future season. But
Oh, is it? I thought he was referring to like Deku or something.
There
think
is
Dex-
actually another person besides those, but
Oh, he
he
didn't.
won't come into play until later.
Okay. Yeah, so there is. Okay. Well, I don't know. It doesn't seem to have his age actually. Um,
If I were
I
to
don't know.
say, I'd say he's in his 60s at this point.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
I thought he wasn't supposed to be much older than Eraserhead.
yeah, because I would have thought that he would have been older than that, especially given how beaten up he is. But um, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so they're definitely not. In conclusion, the teachers definitely aren't teenage boys.
yeah.
So yeah, it's possible that they just always intended, um, like the anime intended her to be a girl. Um,
It's gonna get interesting when we get into some of the anime exclusive stuff because I may have to like assign manga chapters and an anime
Yeah,
episode.
is that what they wind up doing? Because one of the things I've been noticing, since I've been sort of jumping back and forth between the anime and the manga, it seems as though the anime is more detailed and has more stuff going on with it than the manga, which is kind of the opposite of One Punch Man, because you read through like the manga and you get way more than you get in the anime. So
I agree. Like I think I think they try to expand the battle sequences a little bit more.
in
So
the anime, right?
yeah, definitely in the anime, and sometimes they do the weird thing where they'll have two characters talking at the same time, which works in the manga because you can read their lines one at a time and process them all, and doesn't really work in the anime because everybody's just talking over
Oh, okay.
each other. Yeah.
Like the presidential election
Oh yeah.
thing where everybody's just shouting out what they're doing. Okay.
Yep.
So how do they handle stuff like that in the anime? Was it just
Well,
they
okay.
like skipped over it entirely, or
I think so. I think there was one scene in the Eraserhead classroom where characters were supposed to be making like incidental commentary on how Deku hurt himself, and they just literally had four characters talking at the same time in the anime. So that's the only time I've noticed that. The expansion stuff, it usually seems to be like they show a little bit more of like the maps and like the rooms, right? So I think in the manga when Deku and Bakugo are having it out, they just show a couple scenes of him walking around, and in the anime they actually will show like graphs and maps to kind of give you the rough idea of the layout of everything. So they're trying to like fill in some gaps of here's what the terrain looks like that they're fighting on. And you should definitely watch the anime version of the last episode of season 1 because that has a whole extended fight sequence that the manga doesn't have.
Which issue would that be?
I think it'll be issue. We finished 13, so I think it's going to be maybe 14, 15, or 16. It depends on how many.
Okay.
It's not consistent. Like how many chapters they use to fill in a anime episode is consistent across time.
So basically, I guess the advice would be to watch the anime for this next for the next stream, the upcoming stream.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So I'll make sure I get everybody the right episode and manga chapter list for it. So I didn't notice any really major change. I guess the big major change I did notice is they either censored or just didn't include Minetta's thigh gap quote in the anime. Maybe he said it, but it's just in the background and everybody else is talking.
It's a small detail, but it's a nice bit of character building because if he does wind up being like the perfect character, then you can you get some foreshadowing of.
He's pretty stealthy. Like Master Roshi is like 10 times more obvious about it than Mineta hit so far. Maybe he gets worse. Maybe he gets worse later. But for me so far, most of Mineta's jokes are just he's saying something where it would totally go over a kid's head if they didn't have the secret forbidden knowledge that lets you know what Mineta's talking about.
Yeah, if you didn't know what 30 centimeters of thigh, what the importance of that would be. It's interesting too because he's really short as well, isn't he? And
Yeah,
kind of ugly looking because they wind up doing that a lot with the pervert characters in like Master Roshi is, he's not like diminutive, but he is pretty short. Um, and things like Haposai from Ranma Half. You guys, I know Alice, you've seen Ranma Half, but
I've seen I've seen like clips of Ranma, but I've never gone back to. It has a lot of fan service though, right?
yeah, well, that Ranma was really famous for being, along with Sailor Moon. Those were the two first animes that really got popular in the United States, right? Like right when anime was becoming known and acceptable. You basically you watched Ranma Half, Sailor Moon, and then a little bit later on Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
And with Ranma Half specifically, it was made by the same guy who, or lady,
female
yeah,
mangaka,
the lady who did
Inuyasha.
Inuyasha, yeah, that's the one. Like she's very famous for Inuyasha because sort of after Pokemon took off, that opened the gates and she managed to get Inuyasha popular with younger kids. Ranma Half is a little bit more a little bit more mature,
right,
than Inuyasha.
Maybe this is like a generation gap thing because I would see it Inuyasha growing up, and they would advertise it as the creator of Ranma, right? So I figured, oh well, Ranma must be a big deal.
Ranma was she did a whole lot of stuff. She did and they were all quite different. Like there was the Maison Ikoku, which was like a soap opera.
And didn't she do that? Didn't she do Yurei Yatsura or whatever? The one they just revamped. Yeah, Alien Thought, basically.
Yurei Yatsura, yeah. With the alien thought girl, Lum, who floated around and pestered a boy. It's kind of like I Dream of Jeannie, but with a bikini alien cat girl. But Ranma Half was the one where everybody was trans.
You sneeze and change genders.
Yeah, well, it was actually because I don't want to turn this into a Ranma Half stream. This is definitely a tangent, but the conceit of Ranma Half is that a teenage boy martial artist, right? The cool martial arts kid goes to train in martial arts with his father, and they go on a trip to China, where they find a training ground called the Thousand Cursed Springs or something like that, and they're basically like thermal springs that you can fight in and around. And they soon discover that falling into the water causes a transformation. It gives you a curse. Whatever animal or person happened to have drowned in that spring, it becomes like your quirk, basically like a superpower. Every time you, I think it was cold water turns you into that creature, and warm water turns you back to your regular person.
I thought it was sneezing. Wasn't sneezing involved?
No, it's water. I mean, they probably had like little sneezing effects while they while they were changing, but the main trigger for it was water. So Ranma, the main character, winds up falling into a spring of drowned girl, who's this incredibly busty, sexy redhead girl. So now from then on, he's basically living his life as a teenager, martial arts teenager who every time he gets splashed with cold water turns into super hot pigtailed redhead girl, and all the hijinks that result from that.
Now, I think there was a meme a while ago where the creator was asked what would happen if Ranma got pregnant, and then she said, "I don't think about those things, and neither should you."
Yeah, well, that was what I was wondering too. That was one of the things that I was always wondering, like what would happen if Ranma accidentally impregnated himself or something like that,
The word of God, the creator says, don't think about that.
But yeah, it's one of those mangas and animes that's kind of been forgotten. Like I don't think Zoomers really watch it, but especially with all the trans stuff becoming popular, I wouldn't be surprised if it experiences like a giant renaissance. I mean, most of the characters don't change into girls. His dad changes into a panda, for example, and
I guess we're at the risk of getting canceled anyway. So I think part of the problem is like a lot of trans discourse is they're not really talking about a trans character. They're talking about a guy who has to disguise himself as a girl for plot reasons, and then they say, "Oh, he's trans," and then they actually watch it and they say, "Oh no, this is problematic."
Yeah, well, it is one of those things which I mean, back in the day, if you were kind of interested in like drag queens or trans, it was like, oh yeah, Ranma half. Nowadays, it would probably get cancelled for being transphobic because it's presented as not a good thing, right? Like Ranma either doesn't notice or really doesn't like it because the thing is like he thinks like a boy still, right?
Yeah.
And like half the time he doesn't even notice because it happens so often. So he'll be doing something like he'll go to take a shower and he'll come out wearing just a towel around his waist, right? And then maybe he touches some cold water and suddenly he turns into a girl. And of course, now with just the towel around his waist, he's like naked, sexy.
The comedy is from putting a guy into the most ridiculous. It's like white chicks. Let's put someone into a ridiculous situation and see what hilarious hijinks ensue from that. Yeah,
yeah. And a lot of times it was things like, to bring it back to Haposai, he was the resident pervert. He was one of the teachers. He was like the grand master of Ranma's martial arts school, but he was also a complete and total pervert. Absolutely shameless monster pervert. And he would do things like he'd sneak around and he'd drop water on Ranma when Ranma wasn't looking, and then he'd start patting Ranma's butt. And one of his ongoing quests was to get Ranma in bra and panties and take photographs of him, and Ranma would always decline. So there was an episode where they actually had like a martial arts battle where there was a wager. If I win, you have to dress sexy for me and be this cute girl. So it's kind of bonkers when you think about it now, right? Like something like that.
I've been thinking about that. I think Tetsuka is responsible for some of it because he would like to do I think Tetsuka did the first sex education manga in like the history of Japan, and so he would do things like a boy who transforms into a girl or vice versa, and then the point would be like, here's how to learn how boys and girls are different, right? And then of course that starts a whole genre in Japan because he's sort of seen as he's like the Disney he's called the grandfather of manga, but they don't mean the grandfather of Japanese comics. They mean they see him as the grandfather of comic books, right? Like he's a bigger force than maybe even Walt Disney is in that industry. And so then that creates this whole like weird subgenre that it seems to be going away. Like there aren't as many launch style characters where they sneeze and something weird happens to them, right?
Yeah.
Well, or maybe you could say like the weird light novel stuff is taking over that department where it always has like a long title, like now I'm a spider girl in a fantasy.
Oh god,
world
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I died and resurrected as a spider in an RPG. I've seen that. It wasn't very good. Whatever it was. Yeah. Well, I think because that was actually something I was thinking about the other day as well. I think there was there were some parts in the My Hero that I could have brought it up, but I forgot to. But since we're coming back to that, because all those like long title light novel animes, like the one about the spider and the one about like being a level capped something or other, and I don't know, they all seem to be based on like video game and otaku memes, right? Like tropes that are not like developed in video games, but that they're specifically based on like the world logic of like an online game
Yeah.
or something like that.
I think Konosuba is actually a parody of that, where the joke is that he's a weakling and the overpowered god's an idiot, right? Right. So not only are there things like that, there are parodies of the genre too. So
yeah. Well, I think the oh god, what was it? I don't know if it was Miyazaki. It was somebody associated with Ghibli. But he did a very famous interview where he said like he didn't want to hire otakus. Like he didn't want to hire nerds to work on his animes. Do you know what I'm talking about, Mike?
It's great. Yeah, otakus are disgusting. I hate these people. Yeah, I think it was Miyazaki too.
Yeah, I think it was either Miyazaki or the other guy that worked with him. But we'll just say it's Miyazaki and run with it. And the reasoning he had was actually really sound. And he said the reason that he doesn't like working with fans of anime, in his animes, is because people who tend to be like really big fanboys of anime don't have a lot of life experience. And so what they wind up doing, what they wind up bringing to the table is a love for, anime and video games, but not really anything else. Right. So you wind up with a story that's just dead and flat because it is literally just an anime about an anime or an anime about a video game, rather than being a really interesting, very well informed story about life and journeys, heroes' journeys and struggle.
You have to touch grass a little bit.
Yeah, you have to touch grass, and he was basically saying like you have to go like full grass. He was being a little bit mean to nerds.
I think Miyazaki is one of those like insane genius creative types where like there's this footage of him where he's talking about working on Spirited Away, and he's upset because they're not drawing the dragon right. And so he says, haven't you guys ever seen a snake fall out of the tree, the way it coils in the air? And no one's seen a snake. And he's upset because none of them have seen a snake fall out of a tree. How are you supposed to draw a dragon if you haven't seen that?
I thought you were going to say, haven't you ever seen a dragon fall out of a tree? But snake fall out of a tree is, stuff like that, and the... I think this profusion of kind of crappy animes is because of that, because a lot of the people who are now working on animes and comics haven't really done anything besides play video games and read comics. So of course you're going to wind up with a thing that's just it's just a video game or a comic. Well,
I think the anime industry, separate from the manga industry, is also declining a little bit. Like I've noticed that I'll read a great manga and then I'll get excited for the anime, and the anime is just shoestring budget, and there's some actual love put into the manga version of it. So I think like the popularity of anime has led to like peak anime. Like everything's got to have an anime adaptation now, and it's got to be cranked out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's probably true too. And I mean, it's been popular for so long now. It's kind of at the point where
it's its own
corporations thing. Yeah, corporations know it's its own thing, and corporations have an idea of what's going to sell and what's not going to sell, and they have all these plans. Like again, Rumiko Takahashi, the lady that did Ranma Half and Inuyasha, like everything she did was really different, right? It had different tones, it had different kinds of characters, different levels of appropriateness, right? Like Ranma Half was very much like a kind of older teen, really risque, irreverent martial arts romantic comedy romp. Whereas like Meisou Nikoku was more of a straightforward like sitcom about normal people leading weird lives.
So do you think the manga industry as like big picture. Obviously, there are like
Yeah.
individual exceptions. Do you think it's in the big picture? Do you think it's in decline?
Sorry. I mean, I have no idea. Like, how would you define decline?
I don't know.
guess would
Like,
be my...
I would define decline as like there isn't a room for like an individual voice to
like a creative decline.
Yeah, or it's too much the same. And the problem is, like, if I look at something like My Hero Academia, I can see elements where, yeah, it's following the classic Shonen Jump tropes, right? But I feel like Horikoshi cares enough about this that he is trying to like develop that basic formula and add some fresh ideas to that formula. I think let's bring in the Western superhero influence. You can tell he cares about this.
I mean, I definitely think that you know, as far as whether like the industry as a whole is in decline, I don't read enough mangas to be able to say. Unfortunately, I don't know, maybe. But I do think that specifically with like My Hero Academia, I do think that there are a lot of interesting ideas in this, and I think I think you're right in that a major factor of that is his love for comics that are coming through. I would kind of like would postmodern be a good descriptor for for My Hero Academia, because I want to situate it in that same class of comics, like the postmodern hero deconstruction comics, like again,
like
One
Watchmen.
Punch Man. Watchmen was kind of the first one. And then you have things like One Punch Man, The Boys, Misfits, which was the British one that I was trying to remember the other day, where it's all about teenagers getting quirks, but instead of going to school, they go off and be juvenile delinquents with their quirks.
I feel like One Punch Man's more postmodern because the gag about One Punch Man is that he's so strong he doesn't have a challenge, right? So
I mean, there's One Punch Man's got kind of more of the deconstruction, I think, but even with My Hero Academia, right? Like the idea of like a classic superhero story, right? It's about somebody with superpowers who goes out and fights crime and does good. And My Hero Academia, the reason why I think it's this kind of deconstructive story is because instead of just having the heroes going out and fighting crime, it's like, well, what is the society behind the hero? How does the hero build himself up into a person capable of using his superpowers in such a way that it doesn't kill anyone, like 13 was saying, right?
Is the society built rationally?
I think that's kind of more of the focus of My Hero Academia. It's like how are these superheroes situated in the world? Let's see, we got spaghetti westerns, the time for sushi, superhero comics, and movies. Like I would actually be okay with that. I mean, I'm not sure, like at this point, how different things would be between like American superheroes and Japanese superheroes. Like if we suddenly had like a bigger influx of anime inspired superheroes, like it might just we might be so close together at this point that it's indistinguishable.
Things have blurred. It went from being a weirdo outsider hobby to being like everybody watches anime.
Everybody knows it. And the lines are getting more and more blurred as time goes on. So I mean, it would be cool to have sushi superhero comics, but comics and movies like in America, you know, like to kind of challenge the Marvel and DC thing. But I mean, it would just wind up getting canceled anyways. It'd be called cultural appropriation.
There has been some like interesting projects where they're like making anime adaptations of certain Marvel or DC characters, right? Like nothing's taken off, and like, oh yeah, now they're continually doing new manga about, you know, this or that superhero.
Have there been any? Because I remember years ago there was that Batman manga.
Yep. That's an old one
like
too.
old series, yeah.
And that was kind of like a little grungy, right? Because he was like taking old Western comics and then just rejiggering and reworking the plots a little bit.
It was it was weird. Because I read some of it. And it was almost like a noir, like a cyberpunk noir Batman or something. It was weird, but yeah, like stuff like that. I mean, I'm not sure if any have really taken off or gotten like super popular. Have there been successes with like?
I think my feel on the heartbeat, my finger on the pulse is like I think being a Western comics fan in Japan is still kind of like a weird nerd thing. Like you have to be super into comics to care about the comic books that foreigners make and that you have to get translated, right?
Okay,
so
actually, you know what? That's interesting. Who do you think? Who do you think Japanese people might like? Batman.
Well, okay. So in the Batman manga, I think my recollection of it is it's sort of like the Speed Racer almost. It's just sort of latching on to them as like these universal, masculine archetypes. They live to fight injustice, right? And I think that translates across the pond quite well. I know there was a Spider-Man. I know there was a Spider-Man manga, and there was they did a Power Ranger version of Spider-Man where he has like the whole comet. He has the whole like giant robot that he summons with his robot toy. Yeah, and I think even like the Into the Spider-Verse movie. I don't know if it directly references that series, but I think like the Japanese girl is supposed to somehow be related to Spider-Man from the Japanese live action Power Ranger style series. Yeah.
Okay.
The Spider-Man show.
I didn't know there was a Sentai Spider-Man.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, and you can watch it all online for free. It's so weird because he like rides a motorcycle and he's like a super 80s rebel.
Is it like an actual like originally a Spider-Man thing, or is it one? Because I mean, you know the history of Power Rangers, right?
Yeah. It follows that model exactly. Like he'll get into his Spider-Man suit and he'll fight a few bad guys, and then when he realizes the bad guys are tough, he summons his giant Spider-Man robot, and it plays out exactly like a Power Rangers episode where like the model robot comes in and then he fights the giant monster in his giant Spider-Man robot. It's great.
Yeah, that's it looks like it might be. Well, because the thing I was wondering, because there are so many Sentai Henshin shows, right? Like it's a whole genre that they call like Super Sentai or Henshin. And it's actually I think it's the longest running media franchise on Earth by like several decades or something like that. I'd have to look it up again. But one of the quirks about how they presented it in America was that like they would reuse old footage from like 20-year-old Sentai shows and just kind of add in a couple American details like Power Rangers. They'd have like American teenagers come in, and you do like the teenagers talking to each other at the malt shop scenes,
right? But
in America,
you keep the Power Rangers footage for the actual fight.
And then you just like cut and paste Power Rangers footage from this massive library of like 30 years of Sentai fights. So I was wondering if maybe that was like Americans had just kind of added Spider-Man, but I'm looking for like clips here, and it looks like they actually like the Japanese people themselves actually made it originally as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at this picture of Spider-Man hanging out with Doraemon, like a photograph of Spider-Man and Doraemon together, and Ultraman. That's kind of cool. And the Kikaider, the motorcycle thing.
That's one for those guys who like try to find every fictional character knows every other fictional character if you look for enough crossovers. 7 degrees of separation. Yeah.
Oh God, that's crazy.
I can't believe you hadn't heard of that one before, because it was like a meme.
No, I've never heard. I mean, that does seem like something that I would get a kick out of, like corny, corny Spider-Man from old Japanese stuff. But oh God, what was I? There was some point. Why did we start talking about Spider-Man?
We were trying to talk about like the East-West divide, basically, like how much have Western comics infiltrated the Japanese. And there aren't. What's weird to me is a lot of, especially like Young Boys series. It's sort of like they're superheroes, but in different costumes. So Naruto is superheroes, but they're ninjas. Dragon Ball is superheroes, but they're Son Goku martial artists, right? So it doesn't feel like the capes and spandex look. I can only think of like 3 or 4 series where the manga artist says, "I'm going to do a capes and spandex thing," and like I think to them it's like, oh, this is a weird thing Americans like. Let's try it out. But it is kind of an American thing, right? Like the American superhero looks like a American circus strongman, right? And so maybe they don't have that ingrained in like the collective subconscious the way Americans have, a big strong man in a leotard ingrained in our
that's probably a good point. Because that I know when I was a kid, right? I've mentioned this in other streams before, and I know I'm always on the verge of getting cancelled for saying this, but I actually was never much of a fan of superheroes, right? Like Western superhero comics. I did read some of them, and I was aware of them as any nerd should be. But I've always really liked the manga kind of stuff, like DBZ and Ron Half and things like that. And I think one of the main reasons that I gravitated towards the Berserks and the Dragon Balls it is the fact that it's not kind of big silly spandex circus strongman with the underwear on the outside. There's just something about that aesthetic that just seems silly to me, and and I can't really it's difficult to get over it sometimes. The one Western superhero comic that I actually did read religiously, and I've read like every episode of it, was Lobo. And that was specifically because I think a big reason of that was because he wasn't one of these spandex superheroes, right? He was just like leather jacket and jeans, and it seems silly to base your reading preferences on the costumes. But yeah, I do think that there's definitely a fundamental break between Japanese.
Well, I think we're getting some recommendations from the comments. So, the Metal points out that Kinnikuman, which I think that's Kid Muscle, right? That's the Japanese name for Kid Muscle. So that has a spandex and kind of professional wrestling.
Yeah, but that's like a wrestling kind of thing. Like the wrestler spandex is different from.
I think Americans also had like the pulp market, right? Like Batman takes cues from the Shadow, the mysterious man in a black cloak, running around righting wrongs, right? So I think we also have like the kind of like pulp yellow back novel.
Like the old school stuff. Because I actually I really do like old school comics as well. Like I've had this like a geek fascination with pre-code comics and sort of underground comics and stuff like that. And yeah, a lot of those in America, like they tend not to be spandex, and often self-consciously not spandex.
Well, and and the spandex thing was like a weird thing at first. Like they didn't think Superman would sell because it was kind of a weird idea. So it was sort of like it was a really weird, let's try something goofy and sci-fi thing that took off, and then it became the standard for everything for
that's
a while.
What people liked about superheroes, because they were goofy and sci-fi, right?
I mean, I've always thought Batman and Robin peaked in the Silver Age when they were just the two best buddies in the world, and Joker was stealing giant. Yeah, exactly right. Because it's so innocent, right? Like you don't even want to analyze it logically.
Yeah, well, I mean, we would think it's innocent. It's definitely like postmodern kind of all those weirdos. They like to find unwholesome things in Batman and Robin. But I think it was intended to be innocent. I don't think the well, maybe some of it, like Wonder Woman, for example. All the sexual undertones in Wonder Woman, those were definitely intentional.
Well, All Might is based on both Captain America and Superman.
And Superman, yeah.
I see those traits.
I think my hero is and One Punch Man, because One Punch Man is also a spandex superhero. I think these two mangas are definitely breaking the mold by doing that in the American style. I don't know how popular it is. This was actually what I was going to say earlier. I completely forgot, but I'm back to it. So I just checked on Pixiv, and Batman returns about 10,000 works, which I guess Japan is a lot. Yeah, I mean, you know Pixiv, right? It's the Japanese version of DeviantArt.
Oh, okay, Pixiv. So, I always called it Pixiv. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced. I just Pixiv or whatever. But My Hero Academia returns about 110,000.
So about 10 times that number.
Yeah, so about 10 times as much.
And that's a new series. Yeah. Well, the other one is I think One Piece. I'm trying to remember what it was. Like I think One Piece or something may have outsold Batman for the entire run of Batman. So that's like 10 years worth of comics outsold 80 years worth of comics. That was globally. Right now.
Oh God. Oh. Okay, I was just looking for Superman, and I forgot that I don't have my R18. Oh God! No!
Please do not share your trauma with us, Punchy. No.
Oh my God! That's Mickey Mouse?
No, stop it!
Oh, no. I don't. Oh God, this is terrible. Okay, well, yeah, I think almost most of these are probably like. They're mostly porn. Superman gives you about 2,500 bits of horrific Mickey Mouse being strangled while masturbating.
All right, so
Superman works. Versus what you said, One Piece.
Oh, One Piece is going to have hundreds of thousands, probably.
Yeah, let me see. One Piece.
Well, and that's like what do you call it? That's like the power of like the weirdo artist, right? You psychologically attached onto whatever you watched when you were a little kid, right? So if that's what you watch when you're a little kid, that's what you're going to spend 30 years.
Okay, this is One Piece gives us over 150,000, and that's just for apparently there's a whole bunch of different One Piece tags. So one of the One Piece tags that they suggest is 150,000. So there's likely, hundreds of thousands of others. And this is actually mostly porn too, but it's more just like fan service porn and normal girls showing their boobs porn. It's no oh God.
All right, Punchy. All right. I'm gonna family service you, family friendly, right? You right there. All right. So the point is
it just that like people that get into Western comics in Japan tend to be the real weirdos. Maybe that's what it is. I'd have to do more research. But
never underestimate the power of horny to produce hundreds of thousands of works of art. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's really striking though, because I'm looking at this first page of One Piece art.
Well, are you sure it's not just the tag? Like, if you're searching One Piece, it ought to show you One Piece. But if you're searching One Piece tentacle, and you don't know that it's One Piece,
specifically just searching for the series, right? Okay. Like the Superman series versus the One Piece series. And the One Piece series is probably about 80% like mild, not safe for work, like kind of Playboy images, and there's a couple.
Some of that's Pixiv, right? Like Pixiv has a DeviantArt vibe.
Yeah,
if anyone can upload, yeah. All right.
But because anyone can upload, I think Pixiv often gives you more of a feel of like the pulse of Japan, right? Like things like Pixiv and Nico, right? You know, if you're really curious, you just hop on those, and then you can kind of see what like the normies and the average fans are into. And with Superman, the average fans are just it's kind of
just the weirdos.
Horrible. Yeah. Oh well, actually, as I go down, it gets less weird. Now there's like a poop Superman.
Back to something else.
Like it's an actual poop. It's not Superman pooping. It's just like an anthropomorphic poop, and Jimmy Olsen transforming into a werewolf. Yeah. Back to it. In conclusion, it looks like it is actually popular, right? I mean, being 10% as popular as like One Piece or My Hero is still pretty good, right?
Yeah.
It's not unknown, but it's definitely not.
It's definitely the outsider or weird thing, right?
Yeah, it's not as popular as the Japanese stuff. So
now what I really want to know is how many. I really want to know how many Japanese artists like draw Asterix the Gaul or the Smurfs or something, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've seen
Franco-Belgian. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I've seen too many of that. I think I've seen some Smurfs, but well, there is a tag for Smurfette.
No, don't do it. Don't do it, Punchy. You already know what it's going to be.
Just looking at the numbers, it's only 59 numbers.
All right.
And let me see. It looks like a lot of these are like Westerners. It might be Western artists just posting their Smurfette stuff on here because they got kicked off of DeviantArt.
All right. I want to give everybody a chance for some closing thoughts on My Hero Academia before we wrap up today. Alice, do you have any like closing thoughts on the chapters you read?
Not really.
Okay.
I just like it.
Yeah.
It's pretty much just the first taste of what we're going to get in the future.
Yeah. I kind of have the same vibe. Like for me, this is just setting up. It was nice that we got a little character moment with Ida. I liked the twisteroo that it looked like it was going to be another classroom thing, and then the bad guys come out and it's a terrorist situation. So that was a neat twisteroo. For me, it's mostly build up and the cliffhangers, the plot hook that's grabbing me and makes me want to come back for more. Punchy, are you thinking it? Or did you find something horrible?
Yeah, the asterisks. You probably don't want to look for.
I don't want to. All right. So it seems the consistent theme seems to be only the weirdo hentai artists are bothering to. They're scouting the world, looking for all the ideas they can possibly find to make hentai out of. There we go.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of these things, because I was just going through Smurfette and Asterix the Goal, and it looks like a lot of these things are actually just like DeviantArt guys who likely, because DeviantArt every once in a while they'll go on a purge, and Deviant artists who got kicked off will wind up migrating to Pixiv. Okay, so I think that's...
Metal has a hot tip for us. There actually used to be tons of old cape and spandex heroes in Japan. I actually feel it was the influence of 80s action movies and then Dragon Ball that changed it for a long period. So maybe we need to...
Yeah, well, actually... I mean, that is kind of a good point, because we were mentioning like the Sentai stuff. Like that is like they're technically spandex heroes.
Yeah.
They run around with, spandex and capes. I mean, it's a different style of spandex and capes, right? Like it like if you see a Sentai hero, you can usually tell that it's Japanese rather than American, just based on the lines and the way they do the costumes. But
right, maybe different design philosophy, similar concept of simple, colorful characters with superpowers. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
Gotcha Man. Yeah.
maybe the problem isn't that it's too American. Maybe the problem is that it just reminds them too much of like old Japanese stuff, like their grandpa's Japanese nerd stuff, and they're like,
if something reaches if something reaches omnipresent popularity, it starts to get annoying.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Okay, why am I what? Jesus. No, okay, yeah, I'm closing Big Shift.
Yeah. Go hang out with your wife. No more Pixiv deep diving.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry you got traumatized live on air, Punchy.
No, it's okay. I mean, I've seen much worse. It's just it was Mickey Mouse. You know, that's the
that's the worst thing. It's when they get to the innocent things that things start to get like psychologically traumatizing and horrible, right?
Yeah, well, it's Mickey Mouse with David Carradine, and I've always been kind of terrified.
Enough. I'm taking away your free speech. I'm canceling you live on the market.
I'm not going to discuss it.
All right, there we go. So I had fun. I got a little traumatized, but I had fun.
Astro Boy was definitely in that category. Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
with Pinocchio elements added in. All right.
Well, he was again like he was very early anime, and it was very specifically like his work was very specifically based on Disney and Marvel and all the American animation and comics. So yeah.
So maybe there never was a divide. We've been weebs all along since the 1800s. I've actually got a whole theory that there was a craze in France called the Japanese, where a lot of French impressionists would buy Japanese prints and copy them because they were like fascinated with the idea of how Japanese artists thought about shape and color, right? So there's always been like this fascination with the other culture that does something different and wanting to bring that into your like a Western wants to bring that in and mix that in with the Western world, right? So.
Yeah, it's actually funny you mentioned that because I was going to make the example of I don't you didn't post a black ship on Twitter, did you?
No,
I think it might have been Rob from Jersey posted somebody posted an image of like an old 19th century drawing of of like an American black ship, but with like weird, hideous Japanese faces on the prow and like laser beam stuff shooting out of it. It was really cool looking. But that kind of stuff, it was a fad in Europe and America for a while. You had like late Victorian weebs collecting all the Japanese stuff. People going out like Gauguin, I think was kind of a weeb.
Van Gogh would repaint Japanese prints, I think.
Yeah, they all love that stuff. So it's been going on ever since Japan opened up to Western influences.
I think there's some Western poet once said there's no such thing as Japan. It doesn't exist, right? And the point was the Japanese culture was so foreign that it actually felt alien to the Western European mind in a way.
Yeah.
But fascinating, alien in a good way, right?
Yeah. Well, that's something else that I've been thinking about a lot, especially with all the woke and all the kind of chaos going on in the world these days. One of the big things that you'll find in like woke criticism of culture is this idea of like racial caricatures and racist caricatures,
fetishizing the other.
Fetishizing the other, the noble savage, all these kind of pejorative labels for foreign cultures. But it's weird in that it almost seems as though the archetype of the foreigner that woke wants you to believe in, right, is just a Westerner with a slightly different skin color, right? Like it's come back, it's spun all the way around back to this idea of like foreigners must be, just like me, right? They're a guy in a t-shirt and they do everything exactly like me. And
everybody has DEI in the office. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, like, to a degree, like, especially in Japan, because Japan it has had the fastest westernization. It's been very open, and it's had a lot of influences from the outside world. So life in Japan, it's very different, in sort of tone and the way that things work, but there's a lot of surface similarities, right? Like, you won't go to Japan and see like a bucktooth rice farmer running around saying, "Oh, miso sari" or something, with his big coolie hat.
They've updated in technology to the point where it feels like going to New York, but the language is different.
Yeah, but
right?
they're all just like slightly different. But the thing that really gets me, though, is that this is a Western culture that's been imposed upon people who used to have, their own culture that did look like a racist caricature.
Yeah,
right?
Like
when
basically by force. We didn't want to have to deal with the Imperial Japan ever again. We successfully taught them never to do that again, right?
Yeah, and nowadays, again, like, the wokes, like, in trying to champion the other, they've just come right around to, bad mouthing the authentically other, and trying to fetishize them as just another Westerner. So
they're problematic. But what happens if their culture is problematic? Can you really be multicultural if the other culture is racist, sexist, homophobic, misogynistic? Yeah.
And I mean, again, like the Japan that, like, the old school weebs would paint and write about and think about, like, it does look very alien, and you think, like, oh god, are these guys being racist? But it looks alien because it was alien, because it was a different culture, right? Like, they weren't westernized like the rest of us were, in the West. So I don't know, it's just it gets to me, I guess. Because the anti-racists are, like, erasing are erasing the cultures that they're trying to champion, right?
Yeah. I think there's an African activist who kind of makes the point that when Westerners fight for abortion rights in Africa, that's a Western idea that a lot of Native Africans really hate, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Like, either the other should be respected, in which case, like, hey, F off, and let them do their thing, or the other is bad and problematic, in which case, hey, you've rediscovered the white man's burden. Great, good for you.
That's kind of like our cultural burden, though. Like the West is in a state of trying to decide what it's going to be. Are we the evil bad guys, or that's how I see Star Wars. Star Wars is basically, I interpret Star Wars as America versus America. The rebels are supposed to be the American revolutionaries. The Empire is supposed to be the American Empire.
Right? Okay, because I always got Vietnam out of especially out of especially out of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, he intended that to be a Vietnam. I think he said in interviews he wanted that to have a Vietnam.
Okay, did he want all of them to be Vietnam, though, or did he want, like, the first one to be America versus Britain?
So the America versus Britain one that's my interpretation, right? Like, I see it in that. And the Vietnam thing is like a confirmed. He gave an interview saying that's exactly what he was going for. But that's also a little bit more on the nose, right? So,
yeah.
What do we got here? Metal on the ancient Japanese culture is also alien to modern Japanese. Watch Gintama, where aliens invaded and took over in the Edo period, and all of society evolved differently. That's how they view old Japan. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they've I mean, it's still a Japanese culture, right? You know, it's still authentically Japanese in according to any kind of definition you could have for authenticity. But it is very different from the non-Western influenced Japanese culture.
I mean, our closest parallel, I think, is the Crusader, where the Crusader was once like a heroic image, and now it's basically been deconstructed, right? Where the Crusaders, evil psychopathic monsters, right? And then there's also then the meme of, haha, I like this Crusaders because they were psychopathic monsters, right?
The rehabilitation of the Crusaders in the last 10 years or something.
Yeah. So is the cultural boundary the important one, or is the historic boundary between past and present the more important one? Who knows? All right.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm sure My Hero Academia will explore that more fully. Yes.
What's interesting is I haven't seen Ida's the closest thing I've seen to a character who is sort of representing the stereotypical Japanese perspective, because he's very uptight about schoolwork and everything. There hasn't been like a samurai type dude yet. Maybe consciously, like when All Might is held up as the symbol of heroic masculinity, and he's an American. I think he's an American. He's a Japanese-born American, right? So he still has a connection to their culture. But
he's supposed to be like American then, like actually American.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what maybe he has like an American dad, Japanese mom, or something like that. But he is supposed to have a connection to America. Yeah.
Yeah, like Jiro, whom I got into a little bit on Twitter. So shout out to Jiro if anybody's looking for some good enka music, Japanese grandma music, you can check him out.
Nice.
They actually have a character named Jiro in My Hero.
Oh, really? Is he an enka singer?
It's a girl.
Country music. Oh, okay. Never mind. Is she an enka singer?
She is a singer, and she knows how to. And in fact, one of the it later on shows her singing, and other stuff.
Okay,
I really don't know how to explain it.
Don't give too many spoilers, but I'll.
She's the one with the earphone jack.
Oh, okay.
That's her.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up later. But yeah, well, I was gonna say, for samurais, I would think Ida would be the samurai character, really. I mean, he's got that knight, the armor thing, and his family owns, like this Zaibatsu, and many of those Japanese corporations are owned by old samurai families. So,
yeah.
A Wild West, good parallel.
The metal,
yeah. I think that's correct, and I think that's why like for example Kurosawa was always doing these samurai westerns. They recognized a similar kind of romantic period where the essence of the national spirit was more than it was today.
When men were men, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the universal element.
Instead of, throwing picket lines and getting people fired from their jobs because they want to go into a women's bathroom.
Good times create weak men create bad times create strong men create good times. So.
Well, there is about to be a very bad time in My Hero, so hopefully it will create some strong men.
What a segue. All right. I think I've had a chance to talk about everything I wanted to talk about for these issues, so we'll probably have more to dig into for the next one, since that's going to be the big crazy fight. So I'll work out with people behind the scenes to set that up. So thank you, The Metal. Thank you, Warzord, the Board Time Lord, for joining the chat. If you guys have suggestions for things to check out, thanks for the recommendations, by the way. I feel like I've got some cool little things I've got to go dig up and watch now. So I had a blast. So all Punchy and Alice, I want to give you both a chance to say goodbye to everybody and tell us where we can find you.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram now. I also have a Patreon, and I am doing commissions.
Yeah, she does really great animals and dragons and fantastic creatures. So if you know anyone who's in need of a cool like animal keychain or something, give her a shout. So yeah, I guess that would be my goodbye too. Check out Alice's stuff.
You're working on AI art for now, yeah.
Yeah, until my arm clears up. But like I said, there's actually a lot of stuff that you can do. Just have Photoshop open at the same time, and touch it up with Photoshop like you would any other thing. I kind of look at AI art as just being like a really cheap stock photo album, right? Same as like going through stock photos and trying to find stock photos so you can make a digital painting or something.
Generate ideas and reference images. Yeah, that you actually work on to refine.
Also, as far as the workflow goes, that's all it is. It's just stock art.
And I love shouting him out. The Metal, he's been in the comments the whole time. The Metal does web comics. I think his main one is X Dynamis Chaos, and he does a lot of other interesting projects too. So start with X Dynamis Chaos, and you'll probably find a lot of other cool stuff he's working on. Thanks for joining the comments, The Metal. I really appreciate how you always have like 6 interesting things I've never heard of that perfectly relate to whatever I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I had a blast. So this is it for the day. So thank you all for joining, and we will catch you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.